What are Fancy Lucilla's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, the first thing that I should mention is that Kuro Games officially confirmed that she is going to be able to switch between both Echo mode and Glacio Chafe mode. Now, very recently we got a Glacio Chafe DPS in Hiyuki, and she is a very powerful DPS at the minute. However, she also happens to use one of the most contested characters in the entire game at the minute as her second slot teammate. So Lucilla is likely going to be able to free up Linny for Hiyuki and become a new teammate for her because of Glacio Chafe. We have no other Glacio Chafe DPSs currently in the game at the minute, so I personally expect her to mostly be a support for particularly Hiyuki. There is of course the chance that maybe she can support Glacio on the whole, simply because Shakona was able to do something similar for Arrow, though it should be noted that with Phoebe, she was very specifically for Zani when it came to her support mode. So personally, I'm expecting Lucilla to primarily be for Hiyuki in that sense, and we're gonna have to wait for further details to see if she's able to do anything beyond that, but either way, Hiyuki is the most relevant Glacio DPS at the current moment. She's also very popular, so Lucilla being a potential support for her is a pretty big deal. I also personally expect Lucilla to be an upscale for Hiyuki, because she's likely going to be tailored towards her kit because she is the only Glacio Chafe DPS at the minute, making her an excellent investment in general if you're somebody that invested into Hiyuki recently. Then interestingly enough, she is going to have an Echo skill damage part to her kit as well, so if you're not interested in playing her as a Glacio Chafe support, then instead, you can play her for her Echo skill qualities. Now the reason I find this quite interesting is because it came out of nowhere. Sigrika is the most recently released Echo skill damage dealer, however she already has a complete premium team. Choyuan is already an excellent second slot teammate for her, and all other Echo skill damage dealers already have a complete dedicated premium team. So I'm not completely sure why Kuro Games is going to be giving her an aspect to her kit that allows her to deal with Echo skill damage. Perhaps she's just going to be another option for these teams, which wouldn't be bad at all, especially whenever you consider that Sigrika is currently the most restrictive of all of the Lahai Roy DPSs, so perhaps giving her more options would be a nice thing in of itself. And if by any chance she works with some of the older Echo skill damage dealers, then once again, it's going to be nice that she's going to be able to offer some more options to people that are interested in the Echo skill damage archetype. On this front, we are of course going to have to wait for Kuro Games to reveal some more information officially, but as it currently stands, it seems like she's going to be another unique option for these teams, which could potentially take some of the load off of Choyuan's back. Another major pro of Lucilla because of all of this is how she aids your teammate management. Freeing up Linny, I feel like I don't even need to say anything more than that, but for Hiyuki in particular, being able to free up one of the most contested characters in the entire game, if not the most contested character in the entire game, is a really nice thing, especially whenever you consider that, like I said before, she is probably going to be an upscale to Hiyuki, and not only that, but she's going to be an upscale to a very popular DPS that a lot of people did pull for, so her being able to free up her team like this is very, very nice, and it's also going to allow Hiyuki to have a complete premium team. So that on its own is excellent. Everybody who is familiar with the Wuthering Waves meta knows at this point how valuable it is to free up your Linny. And then there's the Echo side of things. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily know why they are giving this to Lucilla, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because characters like Sigrika do have a problem where they very much want one very hyper-specific 5-star teammate in order to reach the full potential of their kits. Now, when it comes to Echo skill damage dealers, it is mostly Sigrika in particular that deals with this. Galbrena is pretty nice because she can just use more Tefi and still do pretty well. She can also use Lupa, she's not really dependent on Choyuan, and Falova's in an interesting case, where she doesn't necessarily need Choyuan, but it's better to get Choyuan for her than it is to get Cantarella for her. He has a higher pull priority. So if Lucilla ends up being a good Echo support, then she's simply just going to add more variety to the archetype, which is a good thing in of itself and is going to make team management far more flexible, and if you're somebody that skipped Choyuan, then this can end up being a really good thing for you. Now, if she ends up being another Echo skill damage DPS, I would find that really confusing, mostly because we already got Sigrika within Lahai Roy. I wouldn't really understand the decision to make another Echo skill damage dealer so soon when Sigrika is still plenty strong. So I think it's more realistic for Lucilla to end up as an Echo support in that case when it comes to your Echo mode, and if that does end up being the case, then I expect that she's going to be a pretty decent one, and while I don't think that she's going to excel for any particular character, because as it currently stands, it looks like most of the Echo skill damage teams are complete, Just having an option that works is nice. A good comparison would be Linny. She has a resonance mode switch and she can play Toon Strain. You can put her in Luke teams. Yes, Denia is going to be a lot better than Linny in these teams, but she's still going to be really strong there if you don't have Denia. I expect Lucilla to be pretty decent in Echo teams, even if she's not going to be best in slot for any given Echo character. And then we come to Lucilla's flaws. I would say her main flaw is simply that she's not strictly needed. Now, what I mean by this is that for the negative status DPS that she is being released for, you don't necessarily require her. If your Linny is currently not being used by anybody else, then Lucilla ends up being a pretty easy skip. Now, I will say, this is a con that likely only applies to a very small amount of people. I think most players did pull for more than just Hiyuki when it comes to Lahai Roy DPSs, and if not just that, then they may still need Linny for one of their older DPSs to have them still keep up, or maybe just to give them that extra boost to clear endgame in some other area if one of their teams is lagging behind. Having Linny freed up is a really good thing. Having the double Toon Break core freed up is also a really good thing. So I think this character not being strictly needed if you have Linny freed up is a fair trade-off, because for most people, they're gonna want that Linny freed up. But in the event that you don't really feel the urge to do that and you're still clearing endgames very comfortably, then Lucilla is not really going to be some strictly needed character on your account, and you're going to be able to save for other units pretty comfortably. And when it comes to the Echo aspect of her kit, like I said, I'm kind of skeptical just because we don't really have a need for her at the minute. She could end up being some niche third slot teammate to round off Echo teams, but in Sigrika teams, using an S0 R1 Shakona is already really strong, and I think it's going to be very difficult to top the Mono Arrow team for Sigrika in particular, who is very relevant to discuss because she is the most recent Echo skill damage dealer we've gotten. Galbrina is already more than versatile enough. If she gets an upscale, that would be welcomed, but I don't really expect that. And then of course, like I already said with Verlova, I don't really expect this to happen because Choyuan is already pretty high pull priority for her, and you use him as a third slot in her team. Another thing is that I don't expect them to make an upscale for Verlova because Cantarella was already made as a dedicated second slot teammate for Verlova. So we're gonna have to just wait and see what official information Kuro drops in regards to the specifics of the Echo part of her kit, because with Glacio Chafe, it's pretty predictable. You can put 2 and 2 together. We only have one other Glacio Chafe DPS in the game. Oh my, I wonder who she's gonna work with. But with the Echo aspect of her kit, it's definitely a lot more up in the air. So we're just gonna have to wait there. And that leads me on to another con, which is that the competition in her teams is so tough already. With Hiyuki, she is competing against Linny and the double Toon Break core. That is a very powerful team core. I do think that Lucilla is going to be an upscale simply because it's likely she's going to be a tailor-made support for Hiyuki, but because Hiyuki is already so strong right now, if you're happy with the state of your teams and clearing endgame, you don't really have to pull for an additional Hiyuki support. You can just save that for another DPS, or save that for another piece of investment that you feel like you need more. And then with the Echo teams, like I already said, competition in those teams is tough already, and I personally don't think they're going to be making Lucilla have an Echo part to her kit just to upscale Galbrina. If they're going to be focusing on any Echo DPS, it's going to be the most recent one, which is Sigrika. We've seen from how they don't rerun older characters, they do prefer to focus on the meta revolving the newer characters, which, yes, it's an issue, but I still feel like that's worth bringing up in this instance, simply because, like I said, I don't think they're going to make a Galbrina support many months after her release. I just don't really see it happening. They're probably going to want to focus on the newest and brightest thing. Even then, it would be very odd to make an additional Sigrika support when she already didn't really get pulled by that many people, because most people skipped her for the 3.3 units. And because Linny is such tough competition when it comes to Hiyuki teams in particular, this character is going to have to do a lot to be an upscale over Linny, so she could end up being a side grade. I once again do think she will be an upgrade, but by how much, we're just going to have to wait and see. And Hiyuki is already plenty strong, so it is very realistic that if you're not struggling in terms of your teammates and you're happy to just claim the Astrite rewards from DPM, you might not really feel any need to go and get an additional teammate for her. So I think that Lucilla, for most people, she's gonna be a great pull, simply just by virtue of the fact that she is able to free up some really powerful characters, and she's gonna work with a very popular character most likely. However, I will say that in some circumstances, you can definitely justify skipping her. She is not some must-pull unit. I'm personally happy to hear that there is another Glacio Chafe character coming up. I think that's really cool. And I think that for the people who want to continue building their Hiyuki premium team, she is going to be a great pull. But I think for anyone else, if you're looking to save Astrites, you can definitely skip her. And with her Echo aspect, we're really just going to have to wait and see a bit more, because as it currently stands, I don't really know what to expect on that front. Hopefully this video is able to tell you Lucilla's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and another big pro is that she has some gosh darn style. Like bro, her animations have so much sauce.